Today we are diving deep into the heart of hiking wisdom. We're about to uncover some of the most common on-track and some off-track hiking mistakes that could make or break your next adventure. Now picture this, you're out on a stunning hike, you're halfway through the day, then you turn around and you realise you've forgotten one of your most crucial pieces of equipment. Your hike's just turned into a nightmare. Well, stick around, I've got some tips, some ideas to keep you safe, comfortable, and loving every step of your journey. Let's get started. Now, before we get into this knowledge-packed video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and don't forget to ring that little bell as well if you're all about hiking and the outdoors, because that's what we do on this channel. Welcome back, Mowser here, and on today's video, we're just going to go through some of the common mistakes I see people make when I've been working as a guide, when I've been just out on my longer hikes. Over the years, over 30 years, I have seen some pretty crazy stuff. I've seen people taking hair dryers. I've seen people taking packs of cookies for a 5-day hike. That's all they took, pack of cookies. We're going to go through some of the common mistakes I've seen people make when preparing and while on hikes, and how you can avoid them. So let's get into it. Let's get straight into the video. Your hike can be more than just a walk. It can be an epic tale, and I have got plenty of them. However, one thing I see over the years again and again is that not everyone is aware of some of the common sort of mistakes you can make in preparing and while you're on the track during your hiking journey that can lead to a very unpleasant trip and sometimes a very dangerous one. Now, luckily, I have never been in any very overly serious situations myself. Let me tell you one story, and this one goes back to the year 1999. 1999, I have two mates. I corral them into doing this trip called Federation Peak with me. If you don't know Federation Peak, probably Australia's hardest trekking peak. And I take them down there to this walk. I'd heard about it. I'd heard it was a really cool mountain, and I thought, I think I'm ready to do this really cool mountain. And back then, there's no social media, there's no internet to speak of really. And I found it in this map. I found where we had to start the walk. I could see a bit of a track marked out on the map, and that was our full preparedness for the walk. Didn't even have the track notes, which did exist back then. I'd spoken to a few people that had done it. We headed in on this walk, day one, some pretty thick forest, pretty scrubby track, and within about 3 hours, we started at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We had to borrow a tent to go on this walk, and about 3 or 4 hours in, we followed a very rough track, and the track had actually been, I found out later, recently rerouted, and we started following what we didn't know was the old track down a hill, all through very thick forest, and realised after about 4 hours of walking that we probably weren't on the trail and we were lost. So what did we do? Even though we were fairly inexperienced hikers, we stopped where we were. It was getting dark. We set up the tent in some very thick forest, and we didn't even have water. We couldn't find a water source, so all we had was the water that we had on us, which wasn't much, and we settled down for the night, a bit worried about what we were going to do. But we had a plan. We had time to think about it, set up for the night. Next morning, woke up, packed up, followed our track back up the hill from where we had come, and were lucky enough to stumble across some taped trail and found our way and ended up having a great trip. Didn't get to the peak on that time, but we got pretty close, turned around because of weather, and headed back out. But the moral of that story is that we were not prepared. We were lucky that time. We could have got really lost if we hadn't had our wits about us. But that's what I want to do this video for today, is that I want to go through what we could have done to avoid getting into that situation in the first place. Now, this was a combination of on-track mistakes and pre-trip mistakes in our preparation. So let's go through now about some of the most common mistakes that are made and how you can avoid them. Let's go. So first up is pre-hike mastery. So I recently did a video on how to plan your next hike, and that's where this comes in to play here in this video. And we'll touch on points made through that video throughout this video. So it'd be worth checking out that one up there. Link is also below if you want to go through that video about how I plan my hikes. But basically the rundown is begin your hike at home. Plan it well. You start planning your trip not in the hour before, but in the weeks before, or the days before, but do some planning before you head out on your walk. So smart packing is critical. Essentials like navigation tools, appropriate snacks, and clothing tailored to the weather you may encounter are absolutely crucial. And I've done videos about all that stuff before. Links are below. Understand the trail and weather conditions in advance before you go. Knowledge is power before you head out on the trail. Doing the right amount of research, looking into the trail you're going on, it's going to make a big difference when you're out there, as is fueling for the journey. Now, on the trail, hydration and nutrition are your pillars of energy. Pack strategically, not adequately. That's something I have said once before maybe, but it sort of makes sense. When I'm packing my food for some of these hikes that I go on, I will pack different amounts of food for different days sometimes, or I know I've got 3 big days on a 9-day trip. For those days, I will make sure I've got enough fuel to get me through those big days. Hydration is critical, so make sure you know that you're going to have enough water each day and that where you're going to go, there's going to be enough water to fill up on. Optimize your food choices. Your body's performance hinges on what fuel you provide it with. Things like nuts, dried fruit, protein bars, granola bars. These make good snacks along with meals that are relatively easy to prepare and are going to give you enough sustenance for the next day's hike and help you recover from today's hike. Avoid the wrong types of foods. If you take too much in the way of salty foods, high sugary foods, just pure sugar like lollies and things, if you just munch on them all the time, it's not the way to go. I find if I go out and just eat packs of lolly snakes, things like that, it can really end up sapping my energy. It's a short burst of energy and afterwards you feel tired. I mean, on that note, I remember as a guide on the overland track back in the day, I would see hikers out there who would take basically no food and rely on others for their food in the huts along the way. They would be trying to scrounge food off other hikers as they went along because they had brought none. Don't be that person. Avoid alcohol, excessive alcohol. Surely a little nip of whiskey or rum if you must, it's fine, that's no problem. But don't, like I once saw on the overland track, again, don't go walking out there with a carton of beer or something like me. That is just ridiculous. Limit that stuff. It will make you feel terrible and it's not what you're out there for. Stick with things like grains, proteins, complex carbohydrates to give you the energy you need. Gear wisdom. Now, I talk about gear all the time on this hike. I love gear. I love it. I love talking about it. But a bit of gear wisdom and taking the right gear can revolutionize your hike. Try and be relatively minimalistic in your packing. Make sure that everything you take has a purpose, but don't skimp. Bring the right gear for the conditions. Take the right clothing. I've got a couple of lists in the links below with my day hike and a multi-day hike list. Have a look at them. That's a very basic list. I'll also leave a link to some of my gear lists that I have used on my hikes so you can get an idea of what I take. Do not take cotton. It has no place in the hiking or out in the trail. Opt for lightweight materials such as polyester or nylon that are breathable and wick away moisture and dry quickly. Ensure you have the right footwear. Do not take brand new shoes or boots on a hike. I have been guilty of this. I have worn new boots on a hike thinking I would be okay. I've got tough feet. I hike all the time. It doesn't work out well ever when you do that. Break your boots or shoes in well before the hike, or you're probably going to end up with blisters. And believe me, as a guy who has had many blisters over the years, it is not something you want on day 4 of a hike when you've still got another 5 days to go, is dealing with bad blisters. If you're wearing trail shoes, ensure that they're sturdy, suited to the conditions, and that you've worn them plenty of times before and know their abilities. Tennis shoes or casual sneakers will generally not do. Think about maybe taking trekking poles. Now, trekking poles are not just accessories. They can be pretty handy tools for stability and support on challenging terrain. Now, while I don't always take trekking poles, they can come in very handy. They can be used to test the depth of snow or water before stepping across a river or stepping over a section of snow, just giving you that little extra layer of assurance. Quite handy in the snow. They can also help with finding your footing in slippery and wet conditions. And when you're crossing that river, they can be very handy in helping you steady yourself. And for longer hikes, especially when you've got these big days across plains, things like that, like I did earlier in the year, they can really sort of improve your motion and take a bit of the weight off the joints in the knees and in the hips. I find them quite good for that. And a few other quick notes in regards to gear, a few quick things that I have seen happen. Taking the wrong sleeping bag. Taking some crappy thing from Kmart out on a massive walk is not ideal. Not testing your gear before you go. I've seen people come out with a new tent. They've never opened it before, they've never set it up, and they're trying to set it up and then it's missing pegs, it's missing a pole. I'm serious, people come out without a pole for their tent. Test your gear. If you've got new gear, have a good look at it before you go. Make sure you know how to set up in your tent. Make sure you know how to use that sleeping mat or that sleeping bag. Is it suited to the conditions? Check your water bladder. Check your water bottle before you go. Does it have a leak? Has it sprung a leak? If you get out in the trail and it's got a leak, then what are you going to do? You might be able to fix it, but it's just a pain. You could have tested it before you left. Next mistake I see on the trail sometimes is poor trail etiquette. Now, respect for nature, wildlife, and your fellow hikers is paramount. So we should all be practicing the leave no trace principles while we are out there. Now, if you've been hiking a while, you're probably well aware of these, but it's a set of principles to empower you to minimize your impact while you're out in the trail. And the sort of 7 core principles they talk about are plan ahead and prepare, traveling and camping on firm ground, disposing of your waste correctly, take it out with you, leave what you find, don't take stuff out with you that you find where you hike, unless it's rubbish, minimize the impact of campfires, respect wildlife, and be considerate of hosts and other visitors. That's the basic overview of the Leave No Trace principles. I'll leave a link below to those as well. And the most common things I see are things like people just leaving rubbish and trash in areas and on the track. I mean, it's not a huge problem in Tasmania here in Australia, but it is a problem. So I often will pick up rubbish I see and carry it out. The other thing that can be annoying when you are in camps around a campsite is just being loud and raucous and not letting other hikers have their peace and quiet. Minimise your noise if you're in a populated campsite. And the other thing is, while you're out on the track, especially on a busy track like the overland track here in Tasmania, if you've got hikers coming up behind you, going at quite a bit of speed, let them through, let them pass, and everyone will be happy if it's safe to do so. But obviously, once it's safe to do so, let them pass, pull over, let them through. And likewise, if you are coming downhill and there are people coming up, it's a lot of work climbing uphill. We all know that. Let them pass, stop for them as they go up past you. That's just common courtesy. Another mistake I see is people underestimating the difficulty of the trail they're heading out on. And in addition to that, some people overestimate their ability, which sort of ties in with that. Now, this can happen for a variety of reasons due to lack of experience or not doing that pre-trip preparation that I spoke of. Bottom line is, if you underestimate the difficulty of the trail you're heading on, you could find yourself in way over your head. Now, as a guide and as a general walker in the past, over the last 30 years, I have come across many people that have needed mine and my group's assistance, and I even had to organise a few evacuations over the years. Now, while not all of these were preventable, proper preparation and research can go a long way in helping you stay safe while still pushing your limits on the trail. While you're hiking, pay close attention to your energy level and your condition so that you can adjust things or turn back to camp if you need to. You might just need a bit of a longer rest, a bit of a longer break, but it is absolutely better to be safe than sorry. If you think you're going to struggle to get there, then turn back, get back to the camp, get back to the start of the walk. Don't keep going if you think you're fatigued and you're not going to get there. And if you do get in a situation where you're just floundering and you don't know what you're going to do, that's where that pre-trip preparation comes in again, and you've got a backup plan organised. You've got your gear, you've got your navigation gear, you've got your personal locator beacon if you need it, you've got all that stuff ready to go, but you've planned and you're prepared, so even if the worst happens, you can get out. Another mistake not to make is with your navigation skills. Beyond trail markers, navigational skills with maps and compasses, GPS, that sort of thing are invaluable. Even here in Tassie, in Australia, on a lot of trails, a lot of form tracks, you can very easily get lost. These trails can be hard to follow, they can be quite vague in spots, and year after year we see people getting lost very easily on what are known and well-trodden trails. And over my journey, I've become quite good at knowing within a metre or two if I have come off the track. If at any stage you feel this doesn't feel right, if you get the sense, even just for a second, that this doesn't feel right, I feel like I'm not in the right spot, you stop straight away. Have a good look around. Try and figure out where you may have gone wrong. Have you gone wrong? Are you still on the trail? Having those skills is essential, but that's where your navigation comes in. You can check straight away where you are. Have I gone the right way still? Knowing that earlier than later makes a massive difference. And like I said at the start of the video, when I got lost to that trip back in the late 90s, we stopped straight away. We figured out where we were and we were able to backtrack the next day. The other mistake some people make is with weather preparedness. Now, nature can be unpredictable. We all know that. So make sure you are equipped for sudden weather changes. That's why here in Tasmania, we've got to basically take our full kit for winter conditions, even in the summertime. Check the weather warnings and announcements before you go. Check for track closures, that sort of thing. You can get extreme weather conditions any time of year. We all know that now. In the summertime here in Tasmania, we can get heat waves. We can people suffering heat stroke on the trail, but at the same time, a week later, we could have snow. We could have flooding. This can all happen within a period of a week or two here in Tasmania, so you've got to be prepared. You've got to keep an eye out on the weather reports on the news, on that sort of thing, to check the conditions before you go. Only a couple of weeks ago, I cancelled a trip. The day before, we cancelled our trip that we were heading on because the weather came in, it looked terrible, and we thought, we're going to leave this one, we'll go another time. It's about making that call and being prepared to change your plans if it doesn't look right. Bushfires have become an increasingly big problem here, and I'm always in the summer now just keeping an eye on any bushfires in the region, and that has often changed my trip plans for some of the big trips that I head on. Safety protocols. Now, safety is paramount, that is obvious. The correct first aid kit and a clear emergency plan are your lifelines. Have things like a personal locator beacon or a Garmin InReach with you on your trek. Always notify someone, even if there's a group of you going, always notify someone who is not coming of your trip intentions. I always, even on a day walk, even on an overnight walk, I always leave a detailed itinerary with my wife of where I'm going and what I'm doing. And in addition to leaving it with my wife, I will give it to a friend who's not coming, who knows hiking, who knows the area, and I will leave it with them. Then if things go south, I know they've got the detail. I can shoot them a message from my satellite messenger if things go bad, and I can refer them to the itinerary about what may or may not have gone wrong. If a search and rescue operation, something had to be initiated, if someone has access to that itinerary to give the authorities, this is extremely handy to the authorities. My trip plan will include things like coordinates. It will include things like my pre-planned trip route GPX file that I would upload to my watch, that sort of thing. Now, I probably go a bit over the top, but even a basic itinerary will be helpful. And I'm lucky that 100% of the time that has not been needed to be called upon, but I still do it regardless every time. And finally, time management. Use daylight to your advantage. I will often start before daylight. We'll pack up, have brekkie, be out just as the sun breaks, and that gives us maximum time, especially on a big day. We've got the full day to get to where we need to go. And the advantage of that is if you finish early, you've got all afternoon to relax. If you're doing a day hike, then you've given yourself every opportunity to finish that trek in daylight, nice and early even. So there you have it, just a few mistakes I've seen over the years. Look, a bit of a ramble today, I know. Thank you for watching. If you got this far, please don't forget to like, please subscribe. Have you got any other ideas for videos? I'm looking for ideas. If you want a video, if you want me to make a video about something in particular, a piece of gear, a walk, whatever, let me know. I'd love to hear it in the comments below. In the meantime, get out there, have fun, and I will see you next time on the weekly video. Until then, take it easy, and I'll see you later. Oh, one more thing, don't forget to sign up to the newsletter, the QR code on the screen somewhere, scan that or go to the link below in the video description. It's coming out every month, newsletter with all the stuff that I'm finding interesting. In the next edition, one of the upcoming editions, I'm going to put my favorite YouTube video 2023. You'll get to find out what that is only in the newsletter, so sign up if you want to hear about that. The video I enjoyed the most for 2023 from anyone. All right, till then, take it easy. Bye.